Nobody has ever been able to explain this strange object.
Don't look at me like that. You knew it was gonna be me. Well, let's have a little look at that thing that you say nobody can explain.
A group of oil drillers discovered it while they were 300 feet underground. Is there an explanation as to how that doll was that deep in the earth?
Ah, this is called the Nampa figurine, or the Nampa stone doll. And I'm glad he asked, because there is an explanation as to how it got there. As he correctly states, the Nampa doll was discovered in 1889 when some people were drilling a well, in a layer of sediment which was deposited between the Pliocene and Pleistocene epoch, which creationists have used to make the claim that this doll is 2 million years old. It is made of fired clay and is about 35 millimeters long. I know the metric system is scary, so here it is compared to an American coin. So we know that the artifact itself is genuine. Now, while the very end of the drill bit was 300 feet in the ground, we have no idea where this figurine came from in that 300-foot span. The creationist rhetoric surrounding this doll, which was really drilled home by creationist Michael Cremo, who is a notorious pseudoscientist, by the way, would have you believe that the doll was actually found at that depth of 300 feet. But spoilers, it probably wasn't. Michael Cremo and others who perpetuate this conspiracy use one little piece of language which will trick their audience into thinking that this doll is from 300 feet in the ground. And that is the claim that it was brought up in a core sample when the drilling was being done. Now, if it had been brought up in a core sample, this would rock the world of archaeology, haha. This being because the doll would have had to have been deposited before that rock was formed. The doll was actually found as liquid sand was being pumped out of the well, meaning that it is impossible to determine where it was in this 300-foot span. Due to the agitation of the sediments, this tiny little figurine could have been washed around anywhere from 300 feet in the ground to 3 centimeters in the ground. In fact, this conspiracy was so easy to see through that it was busted in the 1800s, to the point where American geologist John Wesley Powell actually reviewed the find, and he immediately recognized it as a clay toy created by the Pocatello people who lived nearby. He even presented the doll to multiple Pocatello people, and they all agreed that it was probably something that was created by somebody from their group. And then a kid lost it somewhere, and it ended up in the dirt, and then it got pumped out of the dirt, because that's what happens when you pump the dirt out. So, Cole with the facts. I know that you want to have a cool, snappy title, but Cole, stick to the facts. Because when you spread stuff like this, you get comments like this. And if you're making a space where comments like this can thrive, we're gonna have a bit of an issue.
What if I told you guys that part of the ancient Egyptian empire was in the Americas?
Then I'd say you're full of shit.
Fact number 1, our national parks. Let's take a look at places like the Grand Canyon.
Sweet baby Jesus. Here he's trying to convince you that the Isis temple feature at the Grand Canyon was an Egyptian pyramid or something, but I'm pretty sure this is just because he googled places with Egyptian sounding names in the United States and then went from there. Anyone in their right mind knows that this isn't a pyramid, but if you need me to prove it to you, then here it is. It has all the exact same sandstone layers at the same levels that the surrounding canyon does. You can literally see the Coconino sandstone cap on this, as well as the bands of the same sandstone at the same level around the sides of the canyon. You baffle me. What's your next point?
For those of you who've been with me for a while, I made a video a while back known as the melted buildings theory.
For those of you who've been with me for a while, you'll know that I debunked that shitty theory.
But what if this is an Egyptian arch that was destroyed? You can see runoff patterns coming down.
Of course you can see runoff patterns coming down, because it was eroded by fucking water, You can literally see the same sandstone layers in this arch that you can on the parent rock in the picture that you're using as an example. Oh my god.
Ezekiel 22:21. Yea, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my wrath, and ye shall be melted in the midst thereof.
Neat.
Traces of cocaine and nicotine found in some Egyptian mummies have led some to speculate that ancient Egypt may have traveled to the New World.
Ah, the remains of Henatawi. This is an interesting one. I'll cover this in more detail in another video, but here's what you need to know for now. While initial toxicological analysis of this mummy suggested that there may be the presence of some nose candy, subsequent analyses proved completely inconclusive. However, the subsequent analyses did prove that there was nicotine, which some theorize may be because the mummy was contaminated because when it was discovered, everyone was smoking. This may just be contamination from archaeologists with cigarettes and not an indication that the mummy liked to spark dart every once in a while.
When are people going to realize Haru is patterned after the Palomondo falcon, which is a bird that's only indigenous to the Americas?
They're not going to realize that no matter how many times you quote yourself. Egyptologists believe that Horus is based on the Lanner falcon, because it's a falcon that's indigenous to North Africa. Stop just saying things and expecting them to be right. And just keeps looking at sandstone erosion features and claiming they're pyramids or statues or something. I refuse to subject you guys to any more of that bullshit. Indigenous Americans knew how to do brain surgery. For some reason, I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about this, so I'm going to. I was thinking about making my video for Indigenous Peoples Day about Columbus, but I think at this point we can all agree that Columbus is the Antichrist. So instead of wasting more breath on him, we're going to be talking about impressive indigenous inventions. So let's go. In the 1860s, archaeologist H.G. Squire travels to the Americas to research the pre-Columbian mound-building civilizations. While he is there, he is presented with an archaeological oddity, a human skull with a rectangular hole cut into the top of it. Squire correctly inferred that this wound showed a level of precision that was far beyond anything that would have occurred as an accident. He began the working hypothesis that this had been a form of surgery. And when the skull was analyzed by medical professionals, they were able to confirm that the wound was not only done intentionally, but also showed signs of healing, meaning that it had been performed during this individual's life and there's a chance that it could have saved it. But this was just the beginning. Today, we call the process of drilling holes into the skull trepanning or trepanation, and pre-Columbian South America has yielded hundreds of examples of skulls that all bear the results of this surgery. And what's even more incredible is that these skulls are found over a vast timeline, with some of the oldest examples dating back to 400 BCE, and instances occurring all the way up until the 1400s. And the most amazing part of having all of these different examples to go off of is that we were able to see a continuous trend of people getting better at doing this surgery. While pre-Incan examples of this surgery showed to have a success rate around 50%, after about 200 CE, they were able to complete this surgery with about a 91% success rate, meaning that individuals had a 91% chance of not only surviving this surgery, but also beating off any subsequent infections. And I mean, look at the precision of this. It's mind-blowing. During the American Civil War, fought nearly 500 years after the last time this surgery was performed in South America, a similar brain surgery technique had a success rate of just about 45%. There are obviously other factors at play here, but it's still an unbelievably impressive metric. And you want to know what's even more mind-blowing? They didn't have scalpels, obviously. They were able to achieve brain surgery with a burin, which is what you use to engrave wood. It's theorized that eventually they came up with more specific and specialized tools just for this task, but even then, they were still just scraping away at the skull layer by layer until they removed the piece that they wanted. I might add, they were able to do this with these sharp instruments without puncturing the protective layering on the brain. Now, if you don't think that's impressive, but you thought this was impressive, man, I don't know what to say to you. So, why did they do this? Many of the skulls found showed evidence of some sort of trauma. You can see that right here on this guy. So this could have been done to relieve pressure and fluid buildup within the cranium. But there are also skulls which don't show any sort of head trauma. So what they were suffering from may no longer be visible today.